The travel and tourism industry here in Asia Pacific is a huge driver of economic activity. This year alone, the industry is expected to create about 190 million jobs across the region, with tourism contributing to nearly 9% of the region's GDP. Of course, there are headwinds and challenges, and we're so grateful to have two fantastic, distinguished guests here with us to help us unpack that. Rajeev, let me start with you. Where are we with the travel rebound post-pandemic?
So it was very clear that as humanity at large was locked up during COVID, we all figured out nothing was more important to us than our freedom, ability to travel and spend time with family and friends. So what we saw around the world was every single country, as they opened their borders, people flocked out. In Asia Pacific ex-China, which is the region I represent, we saw full recovery in the last quarter of 2022. And since then, we've been growing double-digit quarter on quarter. Just this year, year-to-date July, our RevPAR growth, which is revenue per available room, for, again, Asia Pacific ex-China is at 14%. And Indonesia is actually leading with 16% RevPAR growth.
That's really huge. What was it before the pandemic, post 2019 or before 2019?
Well, again, the numbers were in that 5 to 6% range, but keep in mind that a lot of it is strong recovery coming quarter after quarter. So it is clear in what we are seeing around the world that people have prioritized travel and experiences and are willing to pay more and really put aside other spending so that they can travel.
That's really great. Everybody wants to get out there. That revenge travel is still very much at work, right? Now, Minister Uno, Indonesia reopened its borders in January of 2022. What would you say has really worked for Indonesia in terms of welcoming back foreign travelers, and where are still the challenges ahead?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in this panel, and thank you for Bloomberg to help my KPIs by organizing this conference. You are the quality travelers that we are targeting. Not only that you come here and stay longer, but you spend more into the local economies. So this type of events, we call it MICE event, has been consistent in putting our recovery stronger.
We're glad
than
to do our
expected.
part.
Thank you. So we see MICE event because we kick off, the opening of the border was April 2022, because we must prepare for the G20. And then the G20 itself was a very great success. It was followed by our chairmanship of ASEAN last year. And this year we hosted a series of MICE events, including one of the biggest is the World Water Forum in Bali. I just got back from Bali for the Indonesia-Africa Forum, and which also been able to attract a lot of quality travelers. The second thing that we, other than the MICE, that we have been focusing and really work well post-pandemic is the shift from the 3S of yesteryears of sun, sea, and sand for tourism in Indonesia into the new 3S in additions, which is serenity, spirituality, and sustainability. So this new strategy to attract more travelers, which focus on trying to find a more personalized, localized, customized, and yet smaller in size type of travel is really showing us the key. And in 2023, I was just reporting to Pak Purbaya that we jumped 10 rankings in the World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Development Index to number 22. We nearly broke the top 20. So in ASEAN, our position is very strong. And globally, we're even ahead of Belgium, Turkey, and New Zealand. So this type of quality tourism have provided us with a whopping 45 to 60% increase in ARPA. We call it, well, in the telecommunication industry is ARPU. In our industry is ARPA, average revenue per arrival. It used to be in a 900 to 1,000 level per arrival of tourists. Today, we're registering 1,600 US dollars per arrival. That means people are spending more, and the average length of stay is also increased to more than 2 weeks. So this really helped the recovery. And finally, third is the focus on the digitalizations, in particular in new destinations. We have tourism village that's very, very popular among Gen Z and millennials. They would like to go for a hidden gem, and through digitalizations, they were able to locate and identify this new experience. And unlike my generations, who probably spend twice, maybe one time a year to do vacation, these young generations, they go on vacations every other week. So they say, oh, we need healing because otherwise we're going to have mental stress.
Of course, they need to populate the Instagram.
Right, and you know, they need to engage with their followers.
Yes, yes.
So they need to showcase that they're actually work from destinations.
That's right.
Which actually bodes very well for my industry, but I think this allow us to strategize more into tourism that create good quality jobs. So per today, tourism created 25 million jobs in Indonesia, and with my other portfolio of creative economy, it's another 25 million jobs, and this is 50 million jobs that are really good quality and very, very close to the hearts of the Gen Z and the millennials.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, you mentioned, for example, that the MICE business is really strong for Indonesia, and yet we know that business travel hasn't completely come back yet, right? How do those two things square away?
So to put it in perspective, business travel in Asia Pacific actually came back 100%. It's more so in the West where it has lagged recovery. Now, the reality is, as we all came out of COVID, leisure led recovery.
Yeah.
Simple. People came out and spent time with their families and friends. Right soon after, we started seeing MICE started to come up, obviously G20, the ASEAN chairmanship for Indonesia. And we also started to see that given much of Asia is driven by relationships, that people came out very early. So our corporate business actually had fully recovered by second quarter of last year.
That's great for Indonesia.
For Indonesia, for actually Asia Pacific ex-China, which is really positive from that point of view.
That's great. Now, Rajeev, I mean, obviously governments like Indonesia recognize the importance of travel and tourism to the GDP. What more would you like to see in terms of cooperation between the governments and industry that could really fuel more travel that's sustainable?
So I have to say, Pak Sandi, and I talk about him all the time, has really been a role model in terms of being a partner in tourism. Because when you think about the growth of tourism domestically and intra-region, it has been really strong. We continue to see that as more FDI comes into ASEAN, particularly, emerging middle class is getting out and traveling more, which means we need more infrastructure spending from the government. We need new destinations. You know, sustainable tourism is not just about continuing to drive more tourism into a Bali, but President Jokowi's vision of creating those 10 Balis. So we just recently opened a hotel in Labuan Bajo.
Great hotel. I stayed there.
Thank you.
I couldn't afford though with the government budget, but later on, after I finish my terms in about 6 weeks, I'll stay in that hotel again.
You're very kind, sir. But to put it in perspective, as destinations like Labuan Bajo or Belitung or Lake Tabo continue to get developed, we need more infrastructure, we need more air connectivity, more international airlift, because that's how you'll see tourism thrive in these destinations. And from that perspective, Pak Sandi and his team have been incredible partners to the industry. And we hope that that trend is picked up by other governments around the region, because it goes a long way in ease of travel and growing tourism in each of these markets.
Minister, what do you think governments like Indonesia can do better in terms of working with industry?
I have Pak Rajeev and Pak Ramesh on speed dial. For those of you who are Gen Z and millennials, you don't know what speed dial means. But you're familiar with speed dials, right? So we're always in contact. And I kept on asking through my deputy here, Kiki, what could we do more? Because I come from private sectors. I used to face the difficulties of private sectors dealing with government, with the attitude in the past, which has greatly changed during the last 20 years, whereby things that could be done today, why do it yesterday? Why don't we do it tomorrow? Now we change it. We anticipate what the industry would need, and because of data, we're doing data-driven policies and evidence-based type of scenario planning. It really helps, and therefore during the pandemic, we were able to support the industry by some of the programs that really could sustain the industry. And I'm so very happy that the scarring effect that we were worried in the hospitality industry is not happening. I came to, this is one of the legendary hotel. It used to be called the Hilton in Bali. Now it's called the Ayodhya. I stayed there. When I was there last year, it was only one tower opening with 100. Today, it's all 535 rooms open with 94%. And majority are from India, from Australia. So, we were worried that they could not really rehire back some of the employees. They were able to go through it.
Yeah. Are there specific, government initiatives where you feel like this could really move the needle in terms of working with industry? Or
we need to continue to do the training and retraining, and not just the normal training, but we need to go on upskilling, because we need to strengthen their skill base, reskilling, because some of the skill that they used to have pre-pandemic is no longer applicable now, and new skilling. There's new skills that they would need. So we have about 6 tourism polytechnic institutes across Indonesia, whereby every year around 10,000 students would graduate, and not only graduate, they're already absorbed by the industry, so much so that they didn't come even to the graduations. We said that, please pick up your diploma. Oh, sorry, we're already working in Bali. We're already working some in Dubai, some in Maldives. So this is something that we believe government needs to continue to work on investment to the human capital aspect on the hospitality, because that's one of the key elements of Indonesia's success in the tourism: nature, culture, adventure, and human capital.
Yeah, such important work.
Just to add to what Pak Sandi just said, for us, 3 things have really played a key role. One is simple visa on arrival from markets like in India, particularly China, and a number of other countries, has been a game changer because it's just allowed flow of tourism. Second, domestic air connectivity. Put in perspective, pre-COVID, mix of our Indonesia business was in the high 30s. This year, we are at 47%, and we have 77 open hotels across 16 destinations in Indonesia and a pipeline of another 42. This is a growth of 70% in terms of Indonesian travelers to our business. And third, to what Paksani just talked about, employment opportunities. Yep. There was real fear because millions of jobs were lost during COVID. Not only have we fully recovered, it's about preparing the generation for the future. Today, we have about 3,500 interns across ASEAN, 147 universities that we have MOUs with, where we continue to bring in new talent to train them and create this future pipeline. So I think not much of this would have been possible if we did not have the government support.
Yeah. Now, Minister, I mean, one of the things when we talk about visas and visa, the ease of visa really obviously brings so many travelers to the country. And I know some countries like Thailand and Vietnam, for example, are talking about a Schengen style, what they have in the EU, right, where you basically have one visa and gets you around the region. Is that something that Indonesia is also looking to participate in if that comes through?
Yes. When you talk about ASEAN as a single destination, this is the low-hanging fruits, because Thailand attracted 40 million, Malaysia is about the same, 40 million-ish, and Singapore, Vietnam. We should offer an ease of moving within the ASEAN countries. So ASEAN as a single destination could be the low-hanging fruits that we could convert into a more quality tourism. Secondly is we believe that the visa-free regime that we had in the past was changed during COVID, and now we have the e-visa on arrival, is something that we've been pushing to the president and other ministries, because we're probably one of the very few countries that still have visa on arrival. Some of the countries, our neighbors, have scrapped the visa requirement, and that's have enabled them to increase the tourist visits post-pandemic.
Great. And is that a conversation that Indonesia is helping to lead in terms of?
Yes, we have the ASEAN Tourism Forum. This forum is among the ASEAN tourism ministers, and one of the resolutions that we have put forward for each country to adapt is the ASEAN type of a single destinations that covers the visa requirements. So when you arrive in Indonesia, you would not need additional headache to go through immigrations or other visa requirements.
That's exciting. How soon do you think that could be in place?
I hope the next minister, because I'm looking forward to my end of my tenure in 6 weeks. I think the next minister should focus on this and to be finally implemented by the ASEAN Tourism Forum in Johor Bahru in Malaysia, January 2025.
That is exciting. Now, Rajeev, I know just from talking to a lot of industry experts that sustainability is obviously something that's so critical for the tourism industry, especially when you have so many millions of people arriving here to Asia Pacific, and yet the industry here in Asia seems to be a little bit behind the curve still. What would you like to see in terms of how government and industry might work better to really drive sustainability and tourism forward?
There is incredible opportunity. So let me just take a step back. As a company, we are the largest hotel company in the world. And earlier this year, we got formal approval from SBTi for our science-based targets, both for short-term and long-term carbon reduction goals. The company is very committed to 2050 net zero. What we have been doing now, putting very specific targets in place. By the end of next year, we are having every single one of our hotels certified, on energy usage. We are very focused on, given really 65% of carbon emission is driven by energy usage. So we're very committed to trying to get green energy, obviously working closely with governments, re-looking at technology to improve energy usage. The other thing I would say is waste management, which in our business ends up being a big issue, both on food waste, water waste, and so on. Reducing landfill. I'll give you a simple example where we are working very closely with Pak Sandi and his team is in Bali, Marriott Business Council. We have some 25 hotels are working on a project called Sungai Watch, which is really clearing the river across Bali. And this has been an incredible effort. An initiative that Pak Sandi has called Surplus, where there's a lot of food that goes into the dustbin every evening, is picked up by the teams and sold at highly reduced rate. Similarly, in other markets like Australia, as an example, there's an organization called Oz Harvest that is picking up this food from hotels across the board. So there's a number of initiatives, but ultimately for us, we manage our business through balanced scorecard approach. So every hotel has been given very clear, defined targets, and we measure them against those. Because ultimately, what's measurable is achievable, and we believe that if we need to get to net zero by 2050, we need to be very aggressive between now and our short-term target of 2030 and then beyond.
What are you seeing in terms of the conversations with the various governments across the region? I mean, is there cooperation? Is there commitment to working together to establish some standards, for example?
Yeah, we have been very active within the platform of UN Tourism and the WTTC. Some of our initiative, or we call it signature programs, is to make a program that would enable Rajeev or Sunita, who are traveling from abroad, to offset their carbon footprint. And this is very popular in Bali. Like last week conference, there are numbers of travelers who wants to plant their own mangrove trees, or they would, through our cooperations, would send somebody to plant the mangrove trees and monitor digitally. So this is the type of green jobs that we think the industry is able to create in a new settings whereby sustainability is very key. And I think not just planting mangrove trees, but restoring the coral reefs or cleaning the river is it's very, very popular among travelers now, and they want to travel with a purpose. So this is something that we see. And if I could mention one more thing, that is what we're seeing post-pandemic is traveling that is linked to music festival.
Yes, huge.
Right?
The Swift.
I got scolded by my president when we could not get Swift. So I prayed. We got Coldplay, okay. We got Ed Sheeran, okay. Nobody got really that excited. Then I prayed, we need something big, otherwise I will lose my job. And then boom, the announcement that Pope made the visit here.
There you go.
So today you're sharing the limelight with Pope Francis, who's making the trip to Indonesia after 35 years from the last Pope visit to Jakarta. So I think event-based tourism is huge now, and we're going to have like Bruno Mars for 3 days. This is
exciting.
Any Bruno Mars fans here? And I think because of the size of the market in Indonesia, and we need to have more flexibility. And next year we're going to launch the Indonesia Quality Tourism Fund together with Pak Purbaya also. This is designed to attract good quality MICE events as well as music or any other world-class events to Indonesia.
That's exciting. Of course, there are headwinds, all around us, and there were some numbers, economic indicators out of China that weren't so great. And I'm just wondering, Rajeev, if you look around the region, what do you see as the major possible headwinds, especially as maybe the China, slowdown continues?
Well, consumer confidence in China is definitely on the weaker side, although outbound, Chinese travel has rebounded. Now, again, from our perspective, we are 90% recovered. Markets like Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, even Indonesia have seen full recovery on the Chinese travelers because the consumer that we were attracting was a little different than the mass Chinese travel. I also am concerned, as many other leaders are, about the geopolitical situation. The situation today in a market like, say, Bangladesh or New Caledonia in my part of the world is concerning because it doesn't take too much for these things to erupt quickly. So at any given time, be it mpox or some of the challenges we've dealt with COVID, those learnings are very much upfront, that we need to stay very agile because the situation in any market can change very, very quickly. But on the whole, tourism still remains a bright spot across the world.
Yeah, and of course you mentioned mpox. I mean, Minister, when we all went through the airport, right, there's a new health declaration that we all had to fill out, and of course that's Indonesia's effort to make sure that they're keeping an eye on mpox. What do you think are some of the biggest lessons, maybe just one lesson, learned from the pandemic in terms of what governments like Indonesia can do better to support tourism through these pandemics and possible health outbreaks?
Data management. We used to have scattered data among government agencies, but during COVID, the big lesson learned is we pool all the data together, and now with the Indonesia Satu Sehat, all the data is now pretty much within one pool of data that we can access. Secondly, preparedness, because mpox is here already, and we just have to reactivate some of the measures that we have during COVID, like the electronic health declarations, and then we have the thermal scanners now on again, and I still have until now my mask. Every now and then because I have an 84-year-old mom, so whenever I visit her, I would use mask. So those type of behavior that we learned during the COVID would stay. And finally, I think there are a lot of headwinds, and I term it in my ministry the VUCA era: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So we as a government that create policies have to be really 360 and front and center with the industry, with the communities, also with the media, to make sure that we are part of this Indonesia Incorporated to prepare for the next challenges. Because we don't have much time. Only 15 years left for us to convert our demographic dividend, we call it demographic bonus, into higher GDP per capita. If we lose time on this, we will miss the chance in 2045 for us to reach the developed country status. So that's why this government, and I'm happy that the next government theme is continuity. Unfortunately, I was not part of the winning team. I was too early by 5 years, partnering with Pak Prabowo. But I'm very happy that he finally got the mandate from the people. So with continuing the works that Pak SBY, Pak Jokowi have been doing, would accelerate our economic growth and the prosperity of the people so that we could reach what we call Golden Indonesia by the year of 2045.
Yeah, very exciting goal. Last question to both of you. What's one change, inflection point that you're seeing that could really change travel and tourism here for the region? Or that you'd like to see? Make it up.
Well, from my perspective, what we're already seeing is the digital transformation, and AI is going to have a tremendous impact on our world. Today, 35% of our business in Asia, ex-China, is coming digitally. Now, that is growing double-digit year after year. Now, add the generative AI component to it, how we service our customers, the ability for people to, travel, ease of travel, it'll be a game changer. And I think, think about just Singapore Airport, for example. Sooner, we won't even need passports. And it makes a lot of difference for somebody who spends 3 weeks a month on a plane. Ability to go in and out very quickly helps. Yep. And anything that makes travel easier, people are prone to, do more of it.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Minister, what about?
CEO generations, please take more vacations.
Well, with that, thank you so much for your time, Pak Sandi and Rajeev. Please give them a hand. If you've enjoyed these conversations that we've been having through the morning, I really invite you to please tune in to our latest podcast called The Big Take Asia. I actually host the show and one of the hosts. And every week, we basically take the biggest, most interesting, most compelling news story and really unpack that with our team of incredible reporters and editors and experts. And it's really a great chance to kind of explore the themes and the issues, the people and businesses in the region. So I really invite you to take a listen and give us some feedback. With that, thank you so much. And please join us for lunch behind those doors.
Thank you.